Oh boy! I can't wait to play Fire format!
Good afternoon, Jank enthusiasts! I'm MBT, and this is 10-Minute Testing. We've explored nearly every alternative to Fire so far, but we haven't yet discussed the other option. You don't have to beat them. You can always join them. Now, I've read more than enough comments from tier haters to know where this is going next. Joseph, how dare you suggest we play the top deck? I thought you were liberated from the bonds of capital. Don't you know how much a Diabel star costs? Well, it certainly looks free from where I'm sitting. But if you absolutely must play in paper and absolutely must play Fire, you do have one option. Presenting Fire King TRI-BRIGADE.
Fire.
So here's the list. As always, I'll give you a background about the archetype, a little bit of a discussion about what I hope the deck can do, and of course, the card by card. But first, this video is sponsored by Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro Deck. Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro Deck is the #1 place to go if you need a pack simulator, a card database, or want to read a wealth of strategy articles. They also post breakdowns and lists from every major TCG and Master Duel tournament, including the Master Circuit series. Give them a look at www.ygoprodeck.com. So with that, let's talk our way through TRI-BRIGADE Fire King. Now, Fire King needs no introduction. It's an incredibly powerful series of playmakers that uses a suite of non-linear combo pieces to put up boards that negate monster effects, dodge negation, pop cards without targeting, and resist destruction. They're currently playing second fiddle in a tier 0 strategy, but they are a part of it. TRI-BRIGADE is similarly popular. Once the best deck, these monsters were heralded not for the explosivity of their plays, but for the consistency with which they could set them up. There's also a lot of synergy between the two. Garunix pops a Fire Tri-type, Fractal can bin Ponix. Finally, the type of interaction the deck is known for, a non-targeting banish, is something people are less prepared to play around in a format full of targeted effect negation. Also, the deck's $30. So with that, let's get into the card by card. We'll begin with the Fire Kings, 2 copies of Sacred Fire King Garunix, 3 copies of Fire King High Avatar Kirin, 3 copies of Legendary Fire King Ponix, 1 Arvata, and 1 Beirong. Beirong is not a consistent inclusion in the Snake Eye Fire King version of this deck. He was experimented with a little bit, especially at the genesis of the archetype's lifespan, but was mostly shaved. Here, we really do need the ability to add Fire Kings from deck to hand, to protect with Kirin, to ensure that we have follow-up plays. It's all very important. After that, we've got our TRI-BRIGADE's 3 copies of Fractal, 3 copies of Nerval, 2 copies of Kit, and 1 copy of Kairos. Remember, Kit is a Fire attribute Tri-type, which makes her a perfect bin for the Sacred Fire King Garunix. Finally, we have our Diabel Star playing a little less of an important role than she does in Snake Eye or Snake Eye Fire King. Here, just playing the singular copy, OSS, and 3 Wanted. The important part of Wanted, of course, is its ability to get Diabel Star from the deck or graveyard, but also drawing a card is really important after you take all of the bad ones out of your deck. And this deck churns through the bad ones like nobody's business. We've got a couple of search targets for Ponix, here the Fire King Skyburn and the Fire King Sanctuary, 1 copy of Fire King Island, and of course 3 Fire Formation Tanky. We're playing 1 copy of Revolt as our only trap for Bear Broom, but that's completely fine. For non-engine, we've got 9 of them, 3 copies of Ash Blossom Joy Spring, 3 copies of Ghostmoor and Moonlit Chill, 3 copies of Ghost, Bell, and Haunted Mansion. Of course, these can be manipulated depending on your local metagame, and of course, some of the cards in the main deck, like the second target for Ponix, can be moved if you think you need more non-engine, but I wouldn't go below 9, and I think these are all pretty good. In the extra, we have a lot more flexibility than Snake Eyes or Snake Eyes Fire King does, which means we can play some really good cards. Typhon, extremely powerful in Snake Eyes, as shown by Christian Urena's recent tops. I like this over almost anything else the deck can produce. Garunix Eternity of the Fire Kings was played pretty early in Fire King Snake Eye, but shaved pretty quickly. Here, we can still make it with shocking consistency, so we might as well. 2 Shurag the Ominous Omen, 1 Zelantis, 1 Access Code Talker, 1 Apollosa Bow of the Goddess. Remember, our ability to get to 4s is so much more pronounced than other decks, just because we have the capacity to cheat out 2s. After that, we've got a Selene, 1 copy of Hita, a Bear Broom, a Farajit, an SP Little Knight, an Ancient Warriored Allied Generals, double Dragon Lords, Salman Great Almirage, and 1 Relinquished Anima. Notably, this SP Little Knight is a really good card in this deck, and if you are making any investment in this format, this is probably the card that you should pick up, just because it's so incredibly powerful in literally every playable deck. That said, If you can't get a copy of her, you can replace her with something else. The deck is not hurting for playable Link monsters. A Beast Warrior or Winged Beast Link 3 would be fine, like Varseleg or Shoreg, or a utility 2 that has the ability to chew through things. Maybe a Nightmare Phoenix or Unicorn would be all right. In the side deck, we've got 3 copies of Nibiru, 3 copies of Droll and Lockbird, 3 copies of Cosmic Cyclone, 3 Evenly Matched, and 3 Anti-Spell Fragrance. So with that, let's jump into the games. Our first match is up against that super heavy Sword Soul deck that's just so funny. Our hand is okay. You don't want to normal summon Nerval, and you certainly don't want to OSS for a card that's already in your hand, but though it's crusty, this does get the job done. We'll protect the Nerval with the activation of our Ponix, then we'll activate the Sanctuary followed by the Fire King Island in order to pop the Bayrong for next turn, grabbing a Garunix, which we can then trigger. We'll activate the on-field effect of the Garunix in order to send a kit to the graveyard. The kit can send an extraneous copy of Nerval as well before we make a Farigite, and summon out this copy of Fractal. Fractal here is going to summon a Bear Broom from Extra. Have you seen this before? Into Apollosa, trigger the effect of the Bear Broom and the effect of the Farigite, and we'll go ahead and grab that TRI-BRIGADE Revolt, keeping that Ponix in hand and shuffling back a hand trap, negating this copy of Nibiru at the end step. Our opponent will draw for turn, and let's see what happens in standby. We'll lead Bayrong, and oh my god, Ash Blossom. We will have to expend an Apollosa on that because I really do want the Kirin. They'll go main phase into Vishuddha, which challenges the Apo, so I guess we will just go ahead and negate that too. Now they'll be able to play through whatever. They're going to go ahead and activate the effect of Bike. Bike into Waka Ushi into Big Benkai into Soul Gaia Horns, and it's at this moment I notice something very strange is happening. We'll go Revolt here. I don't want to see what this is going to become. I have a sneaking suspicion it rhymes with dang and ends with long. We'll go for Shureg here, and of course all of the TRI-BRIGADE effects. I have missed doing this in order to banish this copy of Super Heavy Samurai Prodigy Waka Ushi. That way, even if they have additional material, they can of course not Pendulum Summon. They will Nibiru on our turn, which is funny. They go for Taya here, but unfortunately that's Ignition, meaning that the Fire in Hand allows us to activate and resolve the effect of the Kirin, going for Garunix, summoning out the Bayrong, and popping this copy of Taya. They get over the token and pass back to us, but we should easily be able to clean up from this position. We will in standby get back this Ponix, and then in main phase 1 overlay for the big boy himself. We'll wipe the field and activate FKI, popping the big boy in order to grab an Arvata, so we are protected from the follow-up Nibiru. We'll summon a couple back, followed by the Sacred Fire King Garunix into the 3rd copy of the Kirin. I guess it was important for the OCG to semi-limit it after all, before ending on our 2nd Shureg. That's lethal, so our opponent will scoop him up. Our second match is up against Voiceless Voice, and we don't see both halves of our deck in this game. This showcases how just the Fire Kings can be pretty adept at breaking boards on their own. We're once again going first. We're going to go for a Kirin. We will activate the effect of the Ponix here, activate the Ponix in order to grab a Sanctuary, then fire the Sanctuary to get a Fire King Island. Fire King Island is going to grab us, of course, a Garunix, and afterwards we'll activate the Garunix, activate the on-field in order to send a kit, get to TRI-BRIGADEs, or maybe to nothing because of the Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. That's really frustrating. Okay, we'll set one card and pass back to our opponent. They'll draw for turn. Thankfully, they have a couple of copies of Fenrir, which is certainly a problem for them. We're going to grab another Kirin alongside this Ponix. They're going to go Fenrir into Fenrir. After that, they're going to set the Barrier. Unfortunately, we are going to have to pop that with the Skyburn. We will pop this copy of Kirin, and then a Resolution will trigger the effect of the Kirin, summoning the Bayrong and popping this Fenrir, making way for another one. They're going to go for Diviner here to send a Trias Hierarchica to the graveyard. We will activate the effect of the Kirin in hand to summon it. Then, at point of resolution, they can activate the effect of the Fenrir and the copy of Diviner in the graveyard, and we can dodge the targeted Fenrir with the Sanctuary effect. We will go for our big Xyz, wipe the board, leaving them on a Fenrir, a back row, and a concession button. So it's time for game 3, and you know what that means, a best of 3 versus meta. Our opponent's playing what else? Fire King Snake Eye. We will truly see who is the best Fire King pilot. Unfortunately, our hand is kinda rough, though we do have 3 pieces of non-engine. One is the same piece twice. Our opponent has 2 pieces of non-engine and 3 starters. This is the format, folks. We'll go for the Ponix into the Fire King Island, into the Garunix. We'll activate the effect of the Garunix. They go for the effect failure. Thankfully, we do have the Kirin to counter that. We'll activate the effect of the Kirin in order to go ahead and summon it to our side of the field, resolving the effect of the Garunix to go Kit into Nerval, but unfortunately, we don't have anything else to do with the hand. I think maybe we could have popped the Ash Blossom in hand instead of like a Fire King so that we could have discarded it for Chaos. It's a big if. The game plays out completely differently. Unfortunately, our opponent has a Bonfire, so they're going to Bonfire into a Populous line. They'll go for Linkuriboh, putting the Populous in the back row before activating the effect of Ash in order to summon Oak from deck, then Oak's effect in order to summon back the Popular. Next, they're going to activate the Oak effect to get a copy of Flamberge from deck, and Flamberge's effect to put back the Kirin. They will activate OSS on the Flamberge, which allows them to chain block it. I was holding this Ghost Bell. All right, they're going to go Oak and Ash back, and then they'll go Sanctuary to FKI. Let's just scoop them up here. So it's time for game 2, and This is the format! Oh, I love boarded games. We're going to begin with a copy of Wanted. That will get us Diabell Star. We will go for the tanky, and then at point of resolution, we can send the tanky for the Diabell Star. Feels good, man. Diabell Star here is going to get OSS. We'll activate it in order to send her to the graveyard, and summon a copy of Ponix. We'll activate the effect of the Ponix in order to grab from deck to hand a Sanctuary. We're going to do a little bit of a yoinky sploinky here today, because I want that Arvada online before we actually go for the effect of any of our Tri-Brigades. We'll go into Kieran here, and we get the Arvada engraved. We'll bring back the Ponix. We'll summon this copy of Garunix. Send the Kieran, which enables us to trigger the Kieran in graveyard and bring back the Arvada. Next, we're going to go for Farajit. We'll draw a card, and then we'll activate the effect of Fractal into Kit, into Nerval, into Karos. We'll activate the Farajit. They will negate it with Effect Veiler, but, okay. I guess they forgot that we didn't normal. We'll go Karos into an Omen, and we'll trigger the effect of the Omen to add. We'll go into a Bear Broom into an Apollosa, which triggers the Farajit and the Bear Broom. We are pretty much guaranteed to see sideboarded cards, and we've got some real stinkers. They're going to lead with a copy of Wanted in draw phase. Then in standby, we'll flip up a very fun card. They do have Crossout Designator, but they go for the Arvada here, so I can't use it to negate. They'll go Diabell Star in order to set a copy of Wanted that will never be activated. Then activate Wanted in order to draw a card, which happens to be Ash. Well, that's why we have Apollosa on our side of the field. We will negate the Ash, and then to prevent its secondary effect, we will just go into a second Shureg, triggering it and the Farajit and the Nerval in order to grab a Kit over the course of a couple of adds. They'll go to battle and walk over the Apollosa, freeing up their ability to activate monster effects, but I don't think they're going to be able to make use of it. We'll just normal summon the Kit, we'll activate its effect for 2, go into a copy of DDL, activate Omen's effect, and go to the battle phase, getting in for 16, 7, 18, 24, and 3. Way over lethal. So it's time for that all-important Game 3, and okay, we've opened pretty well. Droll and Lockbird, quite good against the Fire King Snake Eye version of this deck, and the Ash Blossom is the Ash Blossom. They're going to go for a Fire King Island, popping this Ponix for a copy of Garunix. They'll trigger the Garunix, we will trigger the Droll and Lockbird in sequence. They will go Garunix in order to send a copy of Kieran, Kieran in order to reborn this Ponix, and then Diabell Star sending the Sanctuary in order to set an OSS. They'll go for Linkaribo, then OSS sending this copy of Garunix, which we will happily Ash Blossom. Afterwards, they're going to make it SP Little Knight, activate the effect, targeting the Droll and Lockbird, and pass turn. Okay, this is pretty good. We're going to begin with a copy of Tanky for Fractal. We'll special summon this copy of Diabell Star. They're going to go SP Little Knight. No big deal. We get to resolve it, which I'm happy about. Afterwards, we're going to go Fractal in order to send what else? Kit into Nerval, into, what do we want to grab? Probably Karos, right? We'll go Karos in order to pitch this Kieran. Summon itself will activate the effect for 4 that eats an Effect Veiler, which is really rough, but also not the end of the world because our normal is Ponix. We'll go Ponix into Circle, into Fire King Island, into FKI, in order to grab ourselves a Garunix. We'll trigger the effect of the Garunix summoning itself and activating its on-field effect in order to send a Bayrong. Let's go Hita. That eats a Nibiru, which is understandable, so we'll just pass turn. We get back our Diabell Star. They grab, off the top, a Popular. That's rough. In standby, we get Kieran and Ponix. They get to go for Wanted, draw a card. It's Oak. Oak into this copy of Ponix is powerful. We will activate our Kieran, popping the Ponix in our hand, which triggers the Garunix and enables us to use the effect of the Garunix to go for Kieran. Kieran to reborn this copy of Bayrong, pop the FKI, and wipe the entire field. They triggered their Garunix here. Garunix here is able to send a copy of Kieran to the graveyard, Kieran to reborn the Ponix, and pop our copy of Nibiru. We will then use Sanctuary to make the big boy, eat the remainder of the field, and go ahead and trigger the effect of the Diabell Star as well while we're at it in order to grab a Wanted. They'll pass turn here, we draw for turn, and this should be all she wrote. We'll go for Bayrong and standby for Arvada, Ponix and standby to get itself to the hand. They get to Ponix their way back to the hand, but we've just got the numbers. We'll go for Fire King Island in order to pop the big boy, and then we'll trigger the big boy in order to bring back Garunix and the big boy himself. Garunix here bins a copy of Tri-Brigade Kit, which sends a Nerval, which allows us to grab a Fractal. We'll go to the battle phase with the Fractal as insurance should they stop us, and they don't. Woof. What a best of 3. So we're back with the deck, and it's fine. It's got the ability to beat a Snake Eyes player. It's just a question of how often it's going to do it. Let's do the pros and cons. First, the pros. 1, both the Fire King and the Tri-Brigade engines connect into each other fairly well. Having either engine starter can get you to the other really easily, and you don't have to sacrifice much to do it. 2, having extra fires in the deck that benefit from being popped means that Kieran is live on both turns, both for insulating your Tri-Brigades' on-field effects, pretty high value for something like an Effect Veiler, or for popping Kit in hand for graveyard manipulation and searches. And 3, the deck puts out a variety of interactions. Your highest roll boards include the SP Banish, 3 Apo Negates, a non-targeting Banish from Shureg, a non-targeting Pop from Kieran, and a full monster wipe from the Fire King Xyz. This makes you really well equipped for dealing with most things. And the cons. 1, it is extremely sensitive to hand traps. If you only open one of the engines, one well-played hand trap usually leaves you on nothing. You're going to have to sacrifice a lot and play around a lot just to be able to play through 2 pieces of interaction, and 3 is probably a death sentence. In this meta, that is not a good place to be. 2, it has nothing to really deal with evenly matched, other than using your SP in a very particular way. You're going to lose 3 to 4 interactions to 1 card, and that card is very heavily sided. And 3, the deck struggles to play into established boards, more so than its Snake Eyes variant would. Negation on the Tri-Brigades when going second usually ends up leaving you with a middling board, which is easily beaten turn 3 if you manage to break theirs. Overall, if you're not looking to spend $800 on Snake Eyes, but you really love the Fire Chickens, perhaps dust off those Tri-Brigade cards and give this a try. So that's that. Thanks so much for watching. These videos are basically subsidized by, and occasionally suggested by, my Patreons. If that's something that's interesting to you, please check out the link in the description. For now, I'd like to shout out my high-tier patrons, including Elena Tincher, Alex Perea, Allison Elliott, Brett Henry, Canner, Seaweed, Darkmaster Zork, Derp and Dragon, Devin Senpai, DJ Elephant, Enraged Peacock, Gravity, Half Miss, John Piet, Juan Cruz Avila Zati, Night Mary, Legal Rights, Luis Hernandez, Matthew M. Derezzo, MBT Play Madolce, Mike Carlotti, N54 Lionheart, Puffin of Doom, Rabout, Rose Lapine, Solar Flare the Ricka Queen, Troy Says By Erasure is Gay, Vincent Storm, Who's Nick, Wonder Waffle, Your Pot of Greed Does What, and Yuki. I couldn't have done it without you.